my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel. And today's video is my spoiler-free review for She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker-Chan. The content warnings for this book will be linked down below in the description. This was the first book that I started for the Asian Readathon, and it is also the last book that I finished, so my TBR is officially complete. This book specifically covered the prompts: read a book by an Asian author and or with an Asian character who is going on an adventure, and what an adventure this book was. But first, She Who Became the Sun is an adult fantasy. It is the first book in the Radiant Emperor duology, and it is a reimagining of the Emperor of the Ming Dynasty's rise to power. The first thing that stood out about this book immediately to me was the writing style. There was a lot of really amazing and really vivid imagery, especially when it comes to the various settings. And I was in love with this book immediately because of that, and it also really just helped me settle into the story. Like, I realized within the first 3 pages that I just needed to relax and enjoy myself because I was going to be in for a book that I really loved. And I did. So that's going to bring me to my next of my many compliments about this book. This was insanely immersive for me. Like, I got so completely lost in everything about this book. It was like my brain turned off and just filled with this, which I am so grateful for. It's one of those stories that's going to haunt me for a little bit while I wait for the sequel, because not knowing the rest of this story and just not reading this story in general is going to be very difficult for me. As for the characters, this book has a handful of really compelling characters. A lot of them felt so three-dimensional and complex. And just reading and getting lost in their stories was so interesting. The development felt super strong for our more main characters here. And same for the growth. Like, they're not done, but for our main characters specifically, I was just so blown away by this. They all have their own stories, and there's a lot of pain and a lot of trauma that has shaped them and drives some of their opinions and decision making. As for the relationships and the dynamics between the characters, once again, super interesting. They all have their own stuff going on and motivations and drive, and there's a lot of moving parts here throughout this book. And while this book does have its more simple connections, a lot of them are very, very complicated. And a lot of those complications come from the war strategy and the politics, which this book is very heavily focused on. And I really enjoyed that aspect of this book because I just wanted to know what everyone's next move was going to be. And I feel like the different strategies really made sense for each character. This is a story that also talks a lot about fate and desire, and I really love this. I think that this is another place that the writing really excelled because there were some really good lines. And then this also ties back into like the character growth and the motivation, and it was honestly kind of motivating for me just to read, which was very fun. And again, the characters do have differing opinions on this topic based on their various circumstances. Like I said earlier, there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of details about this book and about these characters, and you can just tell how much thought went into this. This story also covers topics such as misogyny, gender dysphoria, body dysmorphia, and LGBTQ+ topics, all within this historical setting. And things are really harsh, cruel, difficult, and painful, but there are moments of beauty in here as well. For example, there is a romance in this book that I really liked, and like I mentioned earlier, character growth, identity, and self-actualization are all in here as well. I also do want to talk about the pacing because I do think that this is a pretty slow-paced story in terms of just how much time I feel like I got to spend with these characters and just how much that I got to know them and follow them throughout their lives. So I love the pacing because of that, but I also loved it because it helped a lot with the immersion that I talked about earlier. There were so many things about this book that I loved, but I do have a couple of very minor complaints. There were times where I thought this book randomly jumped around in the middle of chapters. It wasn't a big deal or anything, it was just more of a slight surprise, like, oh, we're here now, or oh, we're doing this now. And there were just a couple of moments that were pretty surprising, especially compared to the rest of the pacing. And I don't think that the background characters of this story were nearly as well developed as our more main characters, which does make sense, but I do think that some of our characters did get lost here even when they held importance in the story. I also haven't talked about the fantasy elements of this story yet. The fantasy elements, they're important, they're cool, I'm excited to see more of them. them. But there is a part of me that kind of forgot about them when they weren't like right in front of my face. And when they were, they definitely contributed positively, but I do want to find out more going forward. Overall, as you can probably tell by this review, I really loved reading this book. And just spending time with these characters, reading their stories, and just being in this world. The way everything together just worked so well for me, and like the way everything played off of each other and complemented each other or even foiled each other. I am very much looking forward to the next book in this series because I need that desperately. And I am going to be giving She Who Became the Sun 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, so that is all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer the question that'll be around here if you want to do that. And hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye!